Okay, so we're gonna continue talking about character, because that's kind of where we're focused right now, and creating good characters. Um, and all of us can come up with a character, but there's a big difference between coming up with a character and then coming up with a really well-rounded three-dimensional character. And of course, that's our goal as writers is to come up with characters that are really engaging, that the reader really responds to, um, that are just really strong in all way. They do exactly what we want them to do in the course of the story. So to engage that reader, you need to have that compelling character. Now, lots of ways you can get there, but no matter what, you're definitely going to need to do some character development exercises. Okay, so these are just some things that you can kind of work your way through for your character as a means of figuring out who they are and really having a good idea of who they are. They say once you have a really strong idea of the character essentially does the writing for you. The character, I mean, you know exactly how they're going to respond to the situation. You're inside of their head. And that's kind of what the key is. So these character development exercises obviously gives you a good understanding of what these characters are like, the person that you're actually creating. But at the same time, then it also gives you a whole bunch of resources that you can then pull from as you're actually doing the writing of the story itself. The way that they responded in certain situations, there you go. You can go ahead and put that into the story. So some stuff you should definitely know. Obviously, you need to know what your character's overall emotional motivations are. So you definitely need to know their purpose, their impulse, their desire. You need to know what it is, their overarching goal, their overwhelming, whatever that goal is, in life, or at least in the course of the story, what those darker desires may be, the things that aren't necessarily they're in the brain, but they're still gut things that they definitely want. And then their instinctual reaction, those impulsive sort of things, like how they would particularly react in certain situations. And once you know things like that, especially that purpose, then you're able to create a character arc. And the character arc is their journey. And of course, that's what's going to hold that story together. Okay, so a character arc, the definition of a character arc would be the transformation of that character over the course of the story as you go from point A to point B. That journey is actually that character's arc. Okay, that point A to point B, that's their arc, how they changed. So the character begins as one sort of person, but then because of everything that happens to them over the course of the story, they gradually transform into this sort of person. Okay, so they start as one thing, they turn into something else that there becomes their character arc. So as you're developing the character, try asking that character some hard questions. Some of those kind of moral dilemma sort of questions, and know how they would answer them. You can actually, you could literally write down, here's the question, and then write down the answer in that character's voice. Or at least just think it through. How do they respond in there? And that sort of thing. You can even put them in situations where they have to make moral choices. This or that or whatever. And having a good, clear understanding of how the character is going to interact or how they're going to act in that particular situation. That's going to give you a lot of material to use as you're writing. Also, you want to know major milestones in that character's life. What were those big events that really shaped the character into who they are? What are some of our experiences? So what are some of this character's experiences? Those core memories, as they were, that really shaped them into who they are. Another good activity you can do, another exercise you could try, is having them write essentially a description of themselves. How would they describe themselves? And you would do this in different situations. Like how would they, like if they were going to write their own like online dating profile, what would that look like? And that might be different than how they would describe themselves to an enemy. Maybe they're trying to intimidate them. So if they were going to write their bio for the antagonist of the story, well, what would that be like? Obviously, they're going to want to look formidable, right? So how's that going to change? But it's still going to be about themselves. Maybe how would they describe themselves to a police officer about to arrest them? There you go. There's a situation. Um, and so they've got a goal in that situation is to get off the hook. Well, how are they going to paint themselves? What sort of picture they're going to paint of themselves to this officer about to arrest them? This is just a couple different ideas for different activities that you can do. And of course, remember that every character has their own voice. So make sure you're finding your character's voice and doing these sort of activities, asking those questions, putting themselves in situations and so forth. That's going to help you really get at the core of what that character's voice is. Okay? Now, of course, a fantastic technique that you can use is a character outline. That, of course, is our focus for today, is creating a character outline. And just through the act of doing that character outline, a lot of these things are kind of going to get taken care of. So that sheet is just a wonderful resource to use. Now, it is not necessarily enough to really come up with a completely round, completely three-dimensional character. But it's definitely a great place to start. And then from the information that you get from there, well, then you know what other sorts of things you would need to know about that character to really be able to flesh him out. All right, so let's take a look at what exactly is involved in a character outline.